Greetings to you. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Greetings. I always have to double check to make sure that the audio is good. Okay, so give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if you're getting the audio well. Just a thumbs up. Or just click like on the video. Just click like on the live right now, so I can get a confirmation that you are getting me, that you're getting me good. Okay. Good. So you're getting the audio. That's important. The audio is important. So thank you for that. I need to make sure that I get everything fine. It's Sunday. It's Sunday, and thank you. And I want to know, as you tune in, I want to know what part of the world you are watching. What country? What's your location? Meaning, if you're watching me from your car, your home, you know, your patio, your veranda, wherever you're watching, just tell me in the comment section so I understand that you're watching where you're watching. And if you are in your church and you want some distraction, then it's good that you tune into the program. I have a lot to say today, and yesterday I made an attempt to say what I want to say today. Unfortunately, I need to replace my phone. I'm not whining. I need to update my phone, and these devices are not, they're expensive. So it costs a lot of money. If you buy a book, then I can. Okay? Because all my things are attached to the foundation. I don't own anything. I use it on behalf of the foundation. And the program is a window to generate support and funding for the Durga Foundation. That's the whole purpose of this. So you buy a book, then I can update the phone so that I can bring you a better quality, spontaneous streaming, and I don't always have to be in studio to do that. All right. Okay, we have Nina Singh says she's watching from her hammock in New York City. Somebody here says from the Garden of Eden on the east bank of Demerara. Okay. Yes, that's good. That's good. And speaking of churches, people go to church as often as they can. I mean, the modern day church, and I ain't talking about a Catholic church. I'm talking about these scams, these Pentecostals and these Baptists, and these are, you know, these churches that are carrying the name of the pastor and some fabricated name they pull out of wherever, a Church of Heaven and Church of this and Church of that and all kinds of stuff that has nothing to do with the Bible or Jesus. It's just a money maker, an ATM machine for the low-life pastor. However, a lot of people go to these churches every Sunday thinking that they're following something that is authentic. And I understand. I'm not blaming the people. I'm blaming the scammers who are taking advantage of human inclination to want to be close to something divine, while at the same time criticizing everything else. When they go to these churches every Sunday, every week, what do they go to do? They don't celebrate anything present or future. They celebrate unsubstantiated, so-called historical activities and events that happened thousands of years before that cannot be substantiated. And some of them become so emotional when they hear about the story of when the so-called disciples were stoned, hanged, lynched for believing in the gospel and all these things. People today cry. I mean, the way they dramatize, you would think that they were there. You would think that they have witnessed this, the emotion they invested in this thing. Every week, same story. Coming on to Easter, oh, even worse. Good Friday service, oh my gosh. Even worse. But something that happened in my generation, in your lifetime, some of you are living victims and testimony to what has happened during the massacre in the Burnham regime. And it's almost never talked about. Never. It's one issue. The way people are afraid to talk about sex in public, now they're getting the courage to talk about it. The way, people think that if they behave a certain way, they'll be judged. Yeah, the way some women would think and fantasize being a bitch. They want to be molested in bed. They want to be treated like a slut in bed. They think about it, they fantasize it, but they wouldn't ask for it. They wouldn't talk about it. And if you attempt to do it to them, they take offense in that. Well, they fantasize about it. Is the same way. A lot of Guyanese today, politicians, they reminisce, they discuss, they talk about how their parents suffered. They talk and they relive the experiences of the massacre in Burnham time, only within their family circle. When they leave their homes, they pretend it never happened. And anyone who attempts to speak about it, they try to shut you down. Well, today I'm going to keep doing what I always did. Welcome to Uncensored Guyana. I am Dr. L. Prasad. The Jews, for what they experienced by the hand of Hitler and his regime, Stalin, their regime, how many years ago? Decades ago. But they hold that so personal, the generation that lived after that the Jews made sure, they continue to make sure that no generation after that, what Hitler did to the Jews, no generation ever forget it ever happened. They made sure that in school books, history books, it is recorded and taught in most schools, Western schools around the world, for what happened to a small group of people during the Nazi regime. You know what happened, right? The fact that you know what happened is because you read it somewhere. You saw it in movies, documentaries, churches, schools. It's forever present. Why you think that happens? And anyone who doubts it, they're called anti-Semitic, and they face tremendous repercussions for that. Who doubt that Hitler murdered in camp almost 8 million people, who mostly were Jews. You can't afford to doubt it or question it. That's how serious it is to those people. And also, they were compensated. Their relatives were compensated by many countries, including the United States. Reparations. The Jews were given reparations for what Hitler did. The displacement, the prison camps, the murder, all of that. They were given compensation. And not only that, Israel exists as a result of that. The land, the country they now call Israel, exists as a result of what Hitler did to a group of people who were identified as Jews, as a religion. It's not a race, it's a religion. Just like Christianity, just like Hinduism, a religion. During the World Wars, I and II, a lot of people, prisoners of war, suffered Eastern Europe, killed, displacement, all were kept on record. What do you think happened? Almost 40, 50 years after the fact, those families, the relatives to the people who suffered during the Nazi issue with the Jews, during the other tyrants, their families were compensated. Millions, hundreds of millions of US dollars. They were compensated. And you check history books, it is documented. You cannot do history without covering the issues that happened to the Jews and people of the Eastern Europe. You can't. It is imperative that the world remembered. President Irfan Ali, an Indo-Guyanese, whose ancestors also would have suffered and impacted by what happened during the 60s on the Borneo. He continued since during the time he was minister, from the time he held public office, and his first term as president. Irfan Ali, President Irfan Ali, fought more for reparations for Black people living today than any Black president or leader in Latin America or the Caribbean. The only person that can mirror how Ali fought for Black people is the Bajan Prime Minister, Mia Mottley. Those two individuals. All the so-called Black leaders, all of them, they only focus on their local politics to see how they can fleece their governments, to get some kind of compensation for Black programs in their countries so they can eat it. But Irfan Ali, President Irfan Ali, championed the cause for reparations rightly so for what has happened during slavery. But he didn't exist at the time. His relatives didn't exist at the time. The Indians that were not in Guyana at the time when slavery was being experienced in Guyana. The Indians came like what 100 years after slavery was abolished, or however long. They had nothing to do with it. But yet, the man who is championing for reparations for the blacks in Guyana is an Indo-Guyanese Muslim president. But guess what? I'm not impressed. I never was. I don't see the importance of that. I really didn't. Black people sold black people into slavery. You think those white men back in the day with their one-shot rifle could have gone on the continent of Africa, wherever they went, and go capture slaves or people? You think they could have done that? It was trade. Blacks took other blacks from different tribes that were weaker and bartered them. Say, take these. We conquered their territory. We have enough. We don't need this group. You can take them. If black people did that, if there's any reparations that blacks should have, is the governments of the countries from which the slaves came. Those black governments should give reparations to the blacks in the other part of the world who got there as a result of their ancestors being snatched from the land that was allowed by the governments at the time. Black governments, kings and kingdoms and tribal whatever it is, they need to pay the Negroes for what they suffered, not the white man. Okay? Not the white man. But yet, Ali wants to show that he's a man that is impartial for everybody. He's fighting more for the black people than he is for his own people. That's important because justice is not restricted to time or era. You have the Cuban president, Raul Castro, who is on his way to imprisonment. He's 94 years old. Did you think the American justice system says, well, he's almost dead, let's leave him? No. Matters not when your crime was committed. Justice wouldn't sleep. The relatives of the deceased that was murdered by the order, the instruction of Raul Castro, they're still alive today. They still need justice. Their children and grandchildren still need justice. And Donald Trump is delivering justice for those people. All the people. My thing is, what happened to the Indians, the Indo-Guyanese, today, who most and a lot of them were alive during the time when Forbes Barnum, ordered the massacre of Indo-Guyanese. A lot of them are still alive today with the scars. Some are living in Guyana, the rest had to flee to leave their investment, their livelihood, their buildings, their family. They had to leave all of that and start afresh in a strange land. What does it remind you as? Slavery, isn't it? Isn't that what happened to the Africans? They had to leave their livelihood. They had to leave everything. And They were taken to other lands where they had to start afresh with no compensation. Same Indian story. The difference was when the Africans were captured, it wasn't a massacre. It was a business trade between black people and white people. What the Indians experienced in Guyana, that wasn't a business trade. That was a racist, demonic, terrible, well coordinated, orchestrated activity event that happened against a people on the basis of their identity, racial identity and religious identity. You see what caused me to have this show? As you would know, I've been saying this forever. I've even mentioned that in my book. I made reference to what the Indians suffered in the Burnham regime. In this book here, Narcissist, The Brown Betrayal. Read the book. The people who are betrayed are the brown people. The narcissists are the so-called politicians and leaders who claim they stand for justice, but they have forever betrayed the brown people. This is what the book is about. The betrayal of Indians. And I speak to the Indo-Guyanese. I refer to the so-called Indo-Guyanese leaders in the PPP. The only man who could have delivered justice and who had on the agenda, because he would have been one of the reasons why the Indians were massacred, to get him to crumble. Burnham wanted Chetty to crumble. So he destroyed a lot of Indians to get Chetty to crumble. So Chetty would have had innate experience as to the pain the Indo-Guyanese suffered. And I believe he would have delivered justice. But he saw the mountain top. He didn't get to cross over. Those that were raised up in the PPP, you would have hoped that they would continue the mantle and see that justice was served. I saw this documentary, thanks to the people who sent it to me. I watched it. I'm familiar with the history of what happened, but I watched the documentary. I've had many testimonies from people over the years who told me, sit face to face and told me what they went through, how they suffered. People who've had a hand in raising me back in the day shared their stories with me. I have relatives who suffered during that time. When I heard in that documentary, that short documentary, of a man who was 10 years old and who witnessed as a 10-year-old kid what his father experienced, who witnessed how the Indians had to be crammed in the steamer and put behind police vehicles and taken along just for their safety. When you had mobs and mobs of blacks with cutlasses and scissors and knives and guns and cocktail bombs and oh fuck, you have to be inhuman. You have to lose your humanity not to envision what the man was trying to tell you. You have to be really terrible, like fucking Hines and Norton and Alexander Campbell. All these motherfuckers, they were alive at the time. They were. And they would have seen what their neighbors, their classmates, A lot of retired police officers like that asshole they call Paul Slow, and the other one that just wrote a book. These men would have been around. And nobody, it didn't shift them, doesn't affect them. They're not convicted to the point where, just like Ali is calling for reparations, they can pretend, fake it, that they want to see justice for the Indians who suffered. Just pretend like they mean it. Not even that. Sweep it under the rug. Ignore it. Put it aside. And the fact that there's so many blacks in the PPP, in high offices, the Indians in the PPP wouldn't even mention it because they don't want to offend the blacks. Who gives a fuck? If the black people in the PPP stands for law and order and correcting history, why would they be offended? Why would they be offended? It's because of the PPP. They are living large. Why would they be offended? If it is not for the PPP, a party that started with Chetty, that accommodated Burnham, with the help of the West and the CIA, he broke free, started the PNC, and used the PNC to murder his brothers and sisters from the very party that gave him recognition. And you're comfortable with that because you don't want to offend the blacks today? No, the blacks today would have been alive, including Bishop Edgell, Mark Phillips, Sam Hines, all the black men who are over 60. They would have memory, active memory of what happened. And nobody thinks it's necessary to at least pretend they're going to bring justice for these people. The PPP launched a commission to investigate the murder of Walter Rodney and some others. A black man who was murdered by another black man, allegedly, for politics. They saw it fit, the People's Progressive Party, as a government, saw it fit to bring foreigners to Guyana to investigate the murder of Walter Rodney way back in the day. Walter Rodney is still relevant today. They still talk about him. They went on a fact-finding mission, invested taxpayers' money just to hold the PNC accountable for murdering Walter Rodney. What the fuck happened to the Indians? PPP. You could put money aside to investigate a black man murdered by another black man, but you can't invest money to have a commission over the massacre of thousands, not one, thousands of Indo-Guyanese under the same government you're trying to investigate. That's not important. Let me say this to you. My cash grant is still there. How many times they got cash grant? 3 times? However time. My COVID money, my cash grant, it's still in the treasury. I want it. Okay? And I want you to take my cash grant. Attorney General Alan Nandelal, take my cash grant. And any future cash grants that's going to come my way, I'm giving you the permission now on this live program. Take my cash grant and take my cut of the oil money. Yeah, it's my oil. Isn't that what PNC says? It belongs to Guyanese people. Good. So the oil belongs to me. The oil and gas belongs to me. It's my money. I want my money. So take my money, my cash grant, my oil money, take it and put together. Don't waste my money on no commission for fucking what was it? Adriana, so-called. Don't waste my money on that nonsense. We all know what happened, okay? Let the DPP use the money to go after the people who murdered over 3,000 or more Indo-Guyanese. Let them go after them, okay? Who raped those women, molested their daughters, killed their husbands, killed their sons, stole their properties, stole their land, killed their livestock. Let the commission, independent commission, go after. No matter what country you need to go to find the survivors, go to the fucking countries, look for the survivors. Trust me, they're going to show up in the tens of thousands. They're going to show up to your event and register and give their story. Use my money for that. Pay independent investigators to get the facts together. From the first Indian that was massacred to the last one that was massacred. And all the person that you can verify that would have taken a machete or a gun or whatever it is, if you can verify and document that those persons were a part of the system of the scheme to murder these Indians, to dislocate them, bring them to justice. Bring them to justice. Okay? I'm giving you permission to use my oil money, my cash grant money for that. Don't waste the money on a bunch of lunatics and lowlifes and fucking lazy assholes to give them to go and buy some white man's and Chinese product. No. Bring justice finally. Deliver justice finally to the thousands of Indians who were murdered under the tyrant, the demon king, Forbes Barnum. They deserve justice now. Don't pretend, don't fucking fake it, you spineless assholes. I'm pissed. Yes, I'm calling PPP people, I'm calling PPP, People's Progressive Party government officials, spineless assholes. I'm calling you that. You're spineless. You see how much the PNC did? You see how much they invest in any event that is relative to slavery? You see how much when they were in government, you see how much they amplified it? You see, right? Almost never. Only when it's something with the sugar workers that were shot during the white man when they had a revolt at Babu John there, you know, they commemorate that. That's all they talk about. That's all the PPP or the Indians in power, that's all they talk about. Never do they give tribute to the thousands of innocent Indo-Guyanese who had to flee from Linden and other parts of the country because of these evil Negroes that had lust for blood, burn their house down, loot their shops. You're spineless. The reason why you don't want to touch it is because you are afraid of the blacks. You are afraid. You are afraid of the blacks around you. You don't trust them. You don't know how they'll react. So you prefer not to touch it. It's quiet, let's leave it there. No, shit don't happen like that. Because that period was a celebratory period for Forbes Barnum. He celebrated that, not independence from Britain. The fact that Forbes Barnum could select May 26th after the event of May 25th, the blood event, the bloodbath, the sacrifice that he sacrificed all these tens of thousands of Indo-Guyanese. What was it, a ritual? That was the price he had to pay for power. He had to take an oath and swear to the devil to get power. And the Obia, is that what the Obia had required? Blood sacrifice? Murder people? Let the earth suck the blood? Is that what was required for Forbes Barnum to secure power and kept it for all the decades after that? Was that it? He didn't sacrifice the Africans, he sacrificed the Indians. So what happened on May 26th? That the PPP, President Irfan Ali and his government, made the best independence celebration in the history of Guyana. Yeah, man, that was not celebrating British giving Guyana freedom. It was celebrating the massacre of the Indians. It is my view that the fact that Forbes Burnham, PNC government, could have selected May 26th, which is a day after May 25th, which is recorded as the climax of the murder and the massacre to the Indo-Guyanese, as Independence Day. He is reminding the Indians, on this day, remember what we did to you, so you better stay in line. You better hold your peace and walk the walk, because if you don't, we will have 2 Independence Days. The fact that that's the whole motivation behind May 26th. You would think that the first time the PPP got the opportunity to change legislation, they would change that day and say, no, let's go back to the actual day when this thing was signed between the British and whoever it is. Let's go back to that time. Let's take a day that is synonymous with that event, but not a day that is synonymous with murdering of our people. So May 26th should have been cancelled, changed. Matter of fact, it should not even be in the month of May. Should choose another month to recognize the independence from the British, but not to celebrate the massacre of innocent people. So while I want my tax dollars, my cash grant money, to go into fact-finding mission to investigate what happened and to bring an end to it, serve justice, I also want the relatives of those alive today, and I also want the people who are still alive today, the tens of thousands of Guyanese who had to flee the country because of the violence. I want them to receive reparations. I want them to be compensated. Money. Use my oil money to give them. President Donald Trump is fighting and has allocated billions for the people who were imprisoned on January 6th for storming the Capitol. He has put together money to compensate people who went to take over the Capitol, who abused police. Imagine they're going to be compensated. And in Guyana, innocent people who had to flee, women who were raped, men who were, fuck, man. You motherfuckers can't compensate them. They're alive today. A lot of them are still alive. They are afraid to go back to Guyana, fearful. Because they're still seeing images of attacks, violence, guns everywhere. They're still seeing that. And it's not important to compensate them. All the houses, the lands that were stolen from the Indians in Linden, give it back to them. Those people still know. In the deeds, it's still recorded who owned what. The entire district in Linden, where in Wisma, where the Indo-Guyanese were run from. Who lives there now? Who has taken over those people's property? Who stole it? Who gave them rights to those properties? Why can't these properties be returned? They have their children today, their grandchildren. They should get possession of their ancestors' properties that were stolen, they still know where it is. They know where they used to live. The government should go on a fact-finding mission, check the registry, get all the people who had to leave, the 3,000 plus who had to leave Linden, Wismar, because it wasn't Linden before the massacre. It's after the massacre, then that asshole, that fucking criminal put his name there to celebrate what they did. His kingdom, Linden, the den of Obia. Well, all the Indians whose property was stolen from Linden, that property should be returned to the generations now. The children and grandchildren of the people whose land and houses were stolen and burnt, the land is still there. You can't burn the land. It's still there. It's tied to a deed that the records must show. Who owns it? Give it back. Give it back. And if they want to sell it, let them sell it. But the original owners who it was stolen from, it should be returned to them. Give them back the land. And if you don't want to piss people off, President Ali, do what the Jews did. You have 3,000 house lot, whatever it is, that was stolen from the Indians. Region 10 is a vast area. Then all the people, you do the math, and if that thing didn't happen in Linden, the 3,000 Indians and more would have multiplied. They are children too. So it probably would have been maybe 50 or 60,000 today. Cut it in half. You allocate in the same Wismar area and say this land is being given out to the generation as a compensation for what their fathers and mothers suffered on the Bornum. Give them the land so they can rebuild. They can rebuild and they can go home. Give them the land. Because I don't think they want to go back to their old houses that has that kind of memory. If you don't do it, I will beg the universe. And I meditate. Durga Ma is my goddess. I will meditate and I will ask the universe for the opportunity to get into government. And I will deliver justice to the Indians who were massacred. I don't care if the perpetrators are dead. Their names would go down in record as murderers. I will put Burnham on trial. He must go on trial and convicted, and the records must show that he was a serial murderer. The records must show that, not an ex-president, an ex-criminal. I will see to it. But I'm telling you now, I'm giving you the opportunity. I'm giving you, the PPP, President Ali, I'm giving you the opportunity now to fix it. Stop calling for reparations for Black people. And deliver justice for the Indians who suffered. You see what that lunatic did? You see how quick he ran for the Indians from India who was working for an Indian company in Guyana, and some fake story about them not getting food to eat. They're working like slaves. One died under suspicious circumstances. You see how quick the Indian billionaire, the opposition leader, the billionaire, fought for those strangers over an issue that has nothing to do with Guyana or Ali or even him. You see, Guyanese, I want you to understand this. I want you to see the hypocrisy. And that same opposition leader, whose ancestors, whose father was alive at the time, whose grandfather would have experienced the massacre, the experience of all those things in Guyana on the border. They were there, they felt it, they saw it. He can't use his platform and his resources to fight for justice for the Indians who were massacred, to keep it alive. No, he can't use it for that. Why? It's not his problem. He wasn't born yet. You see the hypocrisy? I want you to look at this thing. I want you to look at this. And these are the same people who are going to have Ramadan as Muslims, Eid, and all these Muslim holidays. They put on their costume. They hold all these events to celebrate illusions of what they think happened. Illusions. Anybody can record history. Anybody can say God tell them shit. They can fabricate and take you to some site and say this is where it happened. Anybody can do that. So all these events, Muslim events and whatever events that they repeat every year, cry out for, paying themselves, all those events that they can't verify, they can't authenticate. And like I said before, listen to me carefully. I don't care which imam you is or which priest you are. I don't give a motherfucker. Okay? You can say Allah tell you whatever and Jesus tell you whatever. It's of no fucking consequence to me. I will tell you what I always say. You were not there. Anybody can produce a book and say God tell them shit. God told me to write this. Everything in this book is inspired by the Holy Spirit, is inspired by the spirits of God. Angels stood next to me when I was writing this book, okay? You want to doubt me? You want to doubt me? You want to say I'm wrong? I'm lying? Okay. Prove me wrong. Prove to me that this was not written under the inspiration of God. Prove to me that I'm wrong. You can't, right? Exactly. I can tell you anything. But everything I write here, oh, that you can verify. Because the records show there are people who are alive today. Their children are alive today to tell you, yes, they saw it happen in Guyana, where blacks who supported Chetty and Indians largely were killed. Women were raped on beaches, murdered. People have that testimony. But yet, the so-called Indian leaders in Guyana and the Caribbean and America, with their resources, they can't put their resources together on a fact-finding mission and bring those to justice. The Americans can do it. The Israelis can do it. Europeans can do it. The white people can do it. But the Indians can't. You're hypocrites. Remember that your ancestors give birth to your mother and father. And those who were killed, they gave birth to you. That's why you are alive today. Because of the massacre, your foreparents, your mothers, your fathers, your grandparents were killed. They're not alive today to see your success. or your failures, because Barnum ordered them murdered, because the PNC killed your relatives. You got nothing. Your hard sweat and earning from your foreparents was stolen, confiscated. You had to start from scratch. It doesn't bother you? You don't want justice? You want the black people to call for justice for you? You are offended when somebody talks about it? Okay, fine. In this context, I'm a Negro. And as a Negro, I'm calling for justice for the Indo-Guyanese. See, a black man is asking for justice now. Okay, I'm not a fake Indian. In this context, I'm saying, as a black Guyanese, I'm asking for justice for my Indian brothers and sisters. Is that better? Because none of the other blacks wouldn't do it. So fine, I'll do it. And like I said, use my tax dollar and spend it on independent commission to bring this to end. And it should be in every history book in the schools, every history book. When you're doing social sciences, social studies, history from primary to university, the textbooks must reflect what happened. If you talk about Guyanese history, that's a part of Guyana's history. You can't write about Barnum, but you don't mention his murderous rampage. You can't write about independence and you don't mention. How the fuck you going to teach independence of Guyana from the British and all these things you're teaching, but you consciously omit the worst period in the Guyana so-called independence? You leave that out because you think it will offend the blacks who are here today. Fuck the blacks who are here today. Look what they're doing. Look what they're doing. Look at their platform. Look at the PNC people, what they're doing today. A lot of them lived in that time. Who knows? They would have had they too might have had a machete. They too probably murdered Indians. Who knows? If you don't do your investigation, if you don't talk to eyewitnesses, you will never know who in the PNC today was a part of that murderous rampage. You will never know. You have to do investigation. You have to finish this. You have to bring it to a halt. Serve justice for the people. Deliver justice. Every country does it. Guyana should be no exception. President Irfan Ali and the PPP, the Indian people held on to the PPP because they need justice. They know they couldn't get it from the people they thought were their brothers and sisters. They thought they were one against a tyrant colonialist system. They thought they were one. Blacks and Indians were one. That's what they thought. Until they saw that it ain't the case. To this day, you have black people from the PNC are pushing a narrative that the blacks have more rights to Guyana. They're talking about Kofi and Damon and all these people who they're saying fought for Guyana's independence. No, they didn't. They didn't. They fought for freedom from their masters, from the white man. They had nothing to do with Guyana. As a matter of fact, they fought for the chance to go back to Africa. The slaves who rebelled, they didn't want to stay there. They wanted to go back to Africa. That was a freedom. That's the idea of freedom. Free to do what they want. Not to stay there and continue to suck up on the white system. No. They didn't want that. They wanted to go back to Africa. They didn't fight for independence. The people who fought for independence are the Indians. The Indians did. And they suffered for it. They suffered massively for that. The blacks didn't fight for independence. Don't twist history to suit your own narrative. Get your facts straight. So what I'm saying is, deliver it and done with it. Bring them to justice. Serve the people that made the PPP what it is today. Everybody, all the persons who have contributed largely to Guyana's development are Indo-Guyanese. You understand? Despite how Guyana treated them, despite how consecutive governments treated the Indo-Guyanese population, they continue to serve their country. They continue to deliver the best for their countries, despite how they are treated. The continued betrayal. They continue to do good for their country. The least you can do, PPP, is to solve this issue, compensate the relatives, rewrite the history books, make sure that children learn in their schools, lest it repeats itself. You are hearing across platforms where the black people are calling for revolution. What do you think they called for back in the day with Barnum? Same thing. Revolution. They're calling for it again. And all you do is sit back and you hope that the blacks you have now will protect you. They're silent. Look what they're focusing on. Prostitutes, smelling the others. that's where the attention is. They're focusing on prostitutes. They're focusing on this fake Indian, Ajudi Maman. No, he's a fake Indian. He's a hypocritical Muslim who's a fake Indo-Guyanese. He's the one getting their attention, talking about fucking pumps and floods and all this shit. Who gives a fuck? Why is that relevant? Why is that relevant? Why is every time you get some water, oh, look, the government, hey, fuck that shit, man. Listen. Why is that relevant? You sucked your attention to this nonsense. You have a black man who continually, some king nonsense he calls himself. I haven't seen the news yet that he is arrested for threatening the life of the vice president. A black man, a low-life criminal, fucking homosexual faggot, in front of a police station, threatening to kill an Indo-Guyanese vice president. That doesn't bother you? That doesn't bother you? That in 2026, they still feel empowered, protected, that they can continue to call for violence against the Indo-Guyanese, and that doesn't bother you? If they can do this to a president and a vice president, you can understand what the Indians in the massacre time experienced, because they were just ordinary citizens. Now we're having a repetition of the same thing by way of talking. By way of talking. Look, the news item you saw the other day. A black child murdered his Indian mother. He is consuming all the evil that's coming from black platforms, forgetting that while his father may have been a thug, his Indo-Guyanese mother gave birth to him, breastfed him, raised him. But he consumed all the evil, all the toxicity from the black groups of the black people that he aligned himself with, to the point where he saw his mother as nothing, to kill her, to kill his own mother. Indo-Guyanese. Well, I hope they kill him. I hope they hung him until he's dead. Lynch the fucker. I hope they do that. But this is what I'm saying. Look at the level of violence that the blacks are carrying out against people who don't look like them. And you're telling me history can't repeat itself? People that people went to school with, Indo-Guyanese friends who were blacks back in the day, they had relationships with some of their relatives, best friends. At that moment, when Barnum and the other black leaders called for violence against the Indians, them niggas forgot that only yesterday, that little coolie boy was his best friend. Forgot that. And all he saw was an opportunity to stand with his black people to kill Indians. And that doesn't bother you? That it continues to happen today? Look at the Adriana case, that fake thing about some Indian man want to sacrifice her. Look at what them niggas did. A neighborhood that served them, a business that served them. Friends, 2025. They just flipped and was ready for another massacre against Indians. They burnt the man place down. I mean, are you telling me history can't repeat itself? Look during the time when Granger did not want, not Granger, when his people did not want him to give up power, held on to it for 6 months. Look what the blacks did to the Indians. That was 2020. What happened to the commission to investigate that? What happened to the commission to investigate what happened in the Adriana case? The DPP can order investigation over the death of Adriana, but not all the Indians who suffered as a result of that. Acid in their face, beaten, burnt. You're not going to investigate that. You're not investigating that. You're not investigating the problems with 2020. I know of issues where people, where Indo-Guyanese were ganged up on in 2020, robbed and beaten, threatened with their lives. They had to flee the country. That's recently. What the fuck is wrong with you people, man? You don't think this thing is going to continue? It will continue because you haven't addressed the elephant in the room, the massacre. Start there. Solve that. Bring that to an end. Bring the people to, who did what they did to justice. Compensate the people. Restore order. And then you will see. Now say what you want. I've been saying this for a long time. I want you to watch that documentary if you have it, if you found it, and share it. And while you share it, with a caption on your page, "We want justice now." Share it. Comment under it. Send it to your government officials. PPP government officials. Send it to them. When you see Ali or Jagdio, stop talking about drains. Stop talking about cash grants. Tell them, we want you to investigate the murders, the murder of our relatives in the massacre. We want justice. Fight for that. Demand that. That is more important. Let them know it's important to you. Don't let politics as usual, because it will happen again if you don't solve this now. That was the whole point of my program today. Share this live. I want to hear from you in the comment section. And these two books here, Black Plague and The Brown Deception. I want you to get both copies and read them side by side. Get both copies on Amazon.com. Read them side by side. Call me what you want. If I had the capital, like the Mohammeds, or some billion, if I had the capital, I would have printed at least 10,000 copies of these books and make sure they are available everywhere. Because people, you know, and I would give them a prize for reading it. You know, don't give them a prize for making some stupid song, some ghetto low-life song. You don't give them prizes for that shit. I would have given them a prize, an award, for reading the books and doing a paper on the books. Then you know it's in their head. Because you need to educate the generation now. The fact that that lunatic could kill his mother, he's from this generation. The fact that you have school children, primary school, beating each other up, stabbing each other, kicking each other on the road in their head. They need the information. But chaos seemed to work for black politicians because chaos helps them to push their narrative that Irfan Ali government is against black people. Let's get to some of your comments. Let me calm myself down. You don't forget the events that happened to your so-called religious leaders, but you want to forget what happened to your own brothers and sisters. Well, if you want to celebrate Christmas and Easter and all these events, you should commemorate the deaths of these people. And Hindus are not the enemy. The most peaceful people on the planet are Hindus. But they paid a price because of their religion. Because of their religion. And they continue to pay a price because that Babel Skello guy found innocent for cussing and disrespecting the Hindu goddess Mother Lakshmi. Burnham targeted the Hindus with his massacre. And from then to now, still no justice. All right, Nina Singh says, I was not aware that Indo-Guyanese was murdered and their homes was destroyed in Wisma, Guyana. Well, now you are. Debbie Prasad says, I always have this thought, how come our president is looking reparations for the blacks in our own country? Indo-Guyanese was massacred by the... Tell him that. Ask him that question when you see him. Abdul says, a man by the name of Nesbit Changor was beaten. I think he lose an eye and he was a singer. Well, those people who, if they're still here, they should come out. You know, they should come out and make this thing known. Let their children and grandchildren know what happened so they can be alert and aware. All right. Share this live. Let's continue the conversation on the other platforms. Until next time. Thanks for your attention. Goodbye.